Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. My name is Cybermanalf and today I'm going to be doing an overview and ranking of Series 12. I'm also going to be updating my original scores for the episodes, so the scores that I gave them originally. Also, I hope you can hear that the sound quality in this video should be slightly better as I invested money in a new microphone. But I don't have a pop filter for it at the moment, so you might get some p sounds. So anyway, what are my overall thoughts on the series? So, my overall thoughts on the series are, it's a huge step up from Series 11. The characters are a huge step up, the music's a huge step up, the writing's a huge step up. This whole series just felt like a massive step up from the previous series, with everything. Even all the writing, I think, was better than Series 11, apart from a few episodes, but we'll get onto those shortly. I also really loved the music this year. I mean, last year had some good music, especially in the 13th Doctor's theme. The Dalek theme I quite liked as well, but there was nothing outstanding about the music from last year. This year I love the Cybermen theme, the Master's theme is incredible. But overall, this year, the music for this series has been better. Every character's now got a better theme, all the monsters had themes. Everything had a theme, and I love it when they just play themes for characters, and all the themes this series were miles better than that of Series 11's. I also loved that the 13th Doctor got some more character development. Last year, she was the Doctor, but we didn't really know much about her. We didn't know her morals. They sort of changed every episode, which was not good. But we got to see her go to Gallifrey, get angry at her companions, and overall her character's just been a lot more interesting this year. I also really like the story arc. I know it is a controversial opinion, but the story arc this series, I think, worked well as a story arc, and Chibnall's proved he can write story arcs, so I'm slightly confused about why he didn't do one last year. And the best thing about this series, Sacha Dhawan as the Master. Sacha Dhawan, in my opinion, is the best Master. His performance is perfect. Everything he does, the tissue compressor, the way he kills people, the things he does, the unhingedness of him. Unhingedness, is that a word? I mean, it's in the script. I don't know if that's a word. But everything about him works and is perfection, in my opinion. There are some things that weren't so good about the series, though, in my overall thoughts. I thought that as good as it was for the 13th Doctor to have lots of character development, it did mean that the companions sort of got sidelined a bit. Because they got lots of development last time, but this series there wasn't much for any of them, apart from maybe Yaz. But even that was just very small. I also didn't like the recurring climate change message throughout the series. I thought that it was tacked on to most of the episodes it was in, and definitely didn't work most of the time. There were quite a few dangling plot threads this series had as well, such as, like, when's the Master in the timeline? When's the Ruth Doctor? Although it's implied she's before Hartnell, that's probably not the case. Or, I mean, it might be. But I have a feeling that might not be the case, and there might be a video out that... There might be a video about that coming out later this week, so I might have 2 videos in 1 week. Please do not quote me on that. And all the stories were set on Earth, except the finale, which isn't an issue in itself. It's just something I've seen a lot of people raise in their criticisms of Series 12, so I just thought I'd address it here. I don't mind it. I feel like the whole sort of theme of the series was finding where they belong, and sort of realizing that their travels with the Doctor aren't necessarily the best things ever, and that they are distancing themselves from Earth. So I thought it was quite a nice parallel to have most of them be set on Earth. So now I'm going to get into my ranking of the stories, and also my updated ratings. So, number 10. Oh yeah, and I am going to be doing 2-parters as separate episodes, not as one story. Number 10, and this surprised me as I thought it was going to be another episode on the list, but when I sat down to think about it, I just seemed to find this episode weaker, in my opinion. So number 10, Praxeus. I originally gave a 7 out of 10. I am downgrading that to a 6 out of 10, which is quite a significant downgrade, seeing as I originally gave it a 7. I think my main problem with this episode, why it's at the bottom, is I felt nothing throughout this episode. It was just sort of boring. There wasn't anything jarringly bad about this episode, but there wasn't really anything that stood out to me as good either. It was just a sort of nothing episode. And I originally gave it 7 out of 10 because there wasn't any bad in it, but I felt for a nothing episode deserves sort of like a nothing score, and I don't think that a 7 out of 10 was really representative of the nothing episode. It was more sort of a K episode, which I don't feel like this episode was. Number 9, probably the most hated episode of Doctor Who of possibly all time. This one I expected would come bottom of the list, but then it didn't. It's come in this place, Orphan 55. I originally gave it a 7 out of 10. I am downgrading that slightly to a 6.5 out of 10. I feel like, unlike Praxeus, the reason this has a high score and is higher on the list is because Praxeus just, I felt nothing throughout the episode. It was a nothing episode. There was no bad in it, but there wasn't really any good in it either. With this episode, there were some bad moments, but there are also some moments I can identify as good. I'm not going to go into that specifics here. If you want to see them, you can check out my reviews. But that is why this is higher than Praxeus, which I get is probably not what most people would do, but in my opinion, I think Orphan 55, I felt things throughout this episode, which in my opinion makes it better than a nothing episode. Number 8 is Can You Hear Me? I originally gave Can You Hear Me an 8 out of 10. I am downgrading that to a 7 out of 10. Mainly because now, after thinking about it, I've identified a few more issues with this that I didn't have before. For example, the Chudgaskas. The CGI in them isn't great anyway. I think they were a weak concept in the fact that they were just born out of this girl's mind so she could control them. I thought that plot thread was and didn't work well. Also, the ending was way too quick, and as much as I adore this segment, the animated segment did feel quite out of place. I love the actual animation itself, because I love animated things, and I would love if there was just a whole animated Doctor Who episode, but that style of animation didn't really feel that in place in the episode. Number 7, and this one kind of hurts, because now we're getting to the really good episodes, and it hurts to put this one so low down, but then think about it, yeah, it is just one of the weakest of a very good series. Spyfall Part 2. I originally gave it 9 out of 10. I've had time to think about it, and yes, I do really like this episode, so this is going to be an upgrade to, not a 10, but a 9.5. What do I love about this episode? Sacha Dhawan. Sacha Dhawan is great, the Kasavin are great, Daniel Barton's great, the storyline's great. I really like the sort of treading through history thing. I think the ending's a little bit too convenient. That's probably what holds this one back from being a 10 out of 10. But yeah, we'll get on to more of Sacha Dhawan later. Number 6, Ascension of the Cybermen. I originally gave it a 10 out of 10. I think for the first time in this video, I am sticking with my original score. This is going to stay as a 10 out of 10. I really wanted to bring this episode down, though, to a 9.5, or maybe even a 9. But in the end, I decided not to, as I feel like this episode was just build-up, but then it was very good as build-up. It wasn't a massive, satisfying episode, which I feel like it is one of the reasons why I did want to bring it down, but I can't really knock it for that. Another thing is, I just don't think that this is as good as the episodes above this one. I think it's a good episode, otherwise it wouldn't be worth a 10 out of 10, but I just think the ones above this are just better. I think this is slightly overshadowed by, I know this is a controversial opinion, but I absolutely adore The Timeless Children, so I think that episode kind of overshadows this one. But then that's not really a reason to downgrade this one from its 10 out of 10 position that it currently has. Number 5, Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror, or as it says in my script, Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. I don't know what I was thinking when I was typing this. Anyway, I originally gave this episode a 10 out of 10. As you can guess, I gave Ascension of the Cybermen a 10 out of 10, so this one is a 10 out of 10 as well. It's staying the same. Things I love about this episode are basically the performance of the side characters, which is not something I say a lot with Chibnall Doctor Who. I find the side characters annoying, and they take up too much of the story, like Venny! Sorry, I had to say that at some point. Sorry if I just burst your eardrums or something there. But anyway, I love Nikola Tesla. His performance and the way he's written is so perfect. I would just love to see him, like, as a full-time companion. I know that probably wouldn't work, but it has happened in Big Finish for Mary Shelley and in the comics for David Bowie. So it could work, that's all I'm saying. I also really like the Skithra. I think they worked quite well as the villains of this story. I loved the Scorpion sort of Skithra things, and I loved the Skithra Queen, though I wasn't hugely fond of her design. The acting from Anjali Mahindra who played Ronnie in Sarah Jane Adventures, worked really well in this story to give it I loved it, personally. Number 4. This one is definitely bound to go up in the future. Spyfall Part 1. Originally gave a 10 out of 10. I'm sticking with a 10 out of 10. It will definitely go up in the future. I'm just still figuring these top 4 out. I mean, I love all these top 4, but this is the position they have at the moment. What do I love about Spyfall Part 1? Even without the master reveal, we're going to leave that to the side for a second, although I want to talk about Sasha the One. But I'm just going to have to restrain myself here for a second. But yeah, even without the master reveal, I was really invested in Kazalvin. I really like them as a villain concept and hope they do come back one day. I think Daniel Barton worked well as a sort of James Bond villain of this sort of James Bond, not spoof, but play. I think Stephen Fry, for the time he got, worked well as C. I think the plot was really investing as well. And the character of O, before he became the Master, was great. And the 13th Doctor was getting development, the companions were being good. And I think this worked well, not just as sort of like a James Bondy episode, not just the Doctor Who episode, but as a great series opener. And even without the Master Reveal, I had me invested. And then the Master Reveal just propelled this episode to something else. I mean, the perfection of that scene was unreal. And the Master's theme is something I identify about this as being phenomenal. Number 3. The Haunting of Villa Diodati. I originally gave it 10 out of 10. I'm sticking with 10 out of 10. Stuff I love here. I love the Lone Cyberman as a villain. I think he works really well. And I think he works well in the time he has. I think it was a wise move not to have him in like the beginning of the episode. He appears exactly halfway through. And I think he works phenomenally in this story. I also like the fact that it's finale build-up, but without feeling just like build-up. I think that's my main problem with Ascension of the Cybermen. As much as I love it, it did just feel like build-up. This felt like its own story as well. And I really like Mary Shelley as a character. I love the way her talking to the Lone Cyberman just backfired on her. And all the side characters, again, something I don't say a lot about Chibnall or Doctor Who, worked. And made the story better, if I'm being honest. That's not something that happens a lot with side characters. Number 2. Fugitive of the Judoon. I originally gave it 10 out of 10. Sticking with it 10 out of 10. Things I love about this, the music, have to say, in this is phenomenal. I think this is my second favourite music soundtrack of the entire series, second to what's number 1, which is The Timeless Children, but we'll get onto that later. I love Captain Jack, but then who really doesn't like Captain Jack? And I think the Ruth Doctor reveal as well, and that whole story really propels this episode to be something else. I think the Judoon, although they're small and insignificant in this episode to an extent, work well. I love Gat. I don't know why, but there's just something about Gat's character that I think works really well, though she's not that in it that much. I think her character as a villain works really well, and I would like to see her return one day. And overall, this just works. But coming in at number 1, The Timeless Children is, in my opinion, almost perfect. I did call it perfect in my original review, and I know this is a controversial opinion, so if you don't like it, leave your thoughts down in the comment section below and tell me why, but in a sort of respectful way, not just a they did pre-Hartnell Doctors and I can never forgive them sort of way. I think I found the one thing I don't like in this episode is the bit where Ryan's like, in the hoop, you mess with us, you mess with that bit. That's my one issue with this episode. Everything else in it's so amazing. I love the concept of the Cybermasters. Sasha Dewan is perfect, and it's like the best Doctor Who villain ever. The reveal of the Timeless Child, I think, works really well. The music again, and everything in this just... There's 2 stories to this. There's this Timeless Child, and then there's the Gallifrey Doctor Master story. I think both of them connect really well and interweave. They don't feel like separate stories. They feel like they were made to be together in one story. And I really love the concept of the Cybermasters, as I said, and I think they were really well executed in this story. And it felt like a proper finale, unlike the Battle of Ranskorav Kolos. And those were my thoughts on Series 12. That was my overall thoughts, ranking, and updated ratings. Leave yours down in the comments section below. And if you want to update any of your ratings, feel free to do so. But tell me what you thought down in the comment section below. I really hope you've enjoyed this video. My name is Cybermanalf, and my next video, I think, I'm going to try and do a theory about why Ruth sort of has a police box TARDIS. because that's an idea I've been having in my head for quite a while, and I feel like I want to get that out now. We know the position of her in the timeline, or supposedly. But I've been Cybermanalf, but for me, for now, it's goodbye.